What I have here can be looked at in four parts. And the first part outlines the problem with education then and now. Then the second one would be what education should be. The third part would be the result of good education, and then a kind of a culmination of it all. It's not quite that clear cut. There are elements of one section involved in the other, but it runs kind of in that way. Okay. Will you let me say to you what I think is the organic law of learning? It is to observe the order, to keep down the talent, to enthrone the instinct. There must be the perpetual rallying and self-recovery. Each talent links itself so fast with self-love and with petty advantage that it loses sight of its obedience, which is beautiful. It's like obedience to truth, and sets up for itself and makes confusion. Falsehood begins as soon as it disobeys, and it works for show and for the shop. And the greater it grows, the more is the mischief and the misleading, so that presently all is wrong. Talent is mistaken for genius, dogma or system for truth. Sound familiar? Now the idea of college as an assembly of such men, obedient each to this pure light, and drawing from an illumination to that science or art to which his constitutions and affections draw him. And the very highest advantage which a young man of good mind can meet is to find such a teacher. No books, no aids, laboratory apparatus, prizes can compare with this. Here is sympathy. Here is an order that corresponds to that in his own mind and in all sound minds, and the hope and the impulse imparted. And education is what it should be, a delightful unfolding of the faculties in right order. I could heartily wish it were otherwise, but there is a certain shyness of genius, of free thought, of a master of art in college, which is as old as the rejection of Molière by the French Academy, of Bentley by the pedants of his time, and only the other day, Arago. In Oxford, the recent rejection of Max Muller. If the truth be told, thought is as rare in colleges as in cities. The necessity of a mechanical system is not to be denied. Young men must be classed and employed, not according to the secret needs of each mind, but by some available plan that will give weekly and annual results, and a little violence must be done to private genius to accomplish this. Then genius is always its own law, and must be a little impatient and rebellious to this rule, so that of necessity a certain hostility and jealousy of genius grows up in the masters of routine. And unless by rare good fortune the professor has a generous sympathy with genius and takes care to interpose a certain relief and cherishing and reverence for the wild poet and dawning philosopher he has detected in his classes, that will happen which has happened so often, that the best scholar for whom colleges exist finds himself a stranger and an orphan therein. It is true that the university and the church, which should be counterbalancing institutions to our great material institutions of trade and of territorial power, do not express the sentiment of the popular politics and the popular optimism, whatever it may be. Is it geology, astronomy, poetry, antiques, art, rhetoric? But that which it exists for, to be a fountain of novelties out of heaven, a Delphos uttering warning and ravishing oracles to lift and lead mankind, that it shall not be permitted to do or to think of. On the contrary, every generosity of thought is suspect and gets a bad name, and all the youth come out decrepit citizens, not a prophet, not a poet, not a daemon, but is gagged and stifled and driven away. All that is sought in the instruction is drill, tutors, not inspirers. I conceive that a college should have no mean ambition, but should aim at a reverent discipline and invitation of the soul, that here, if nowhere else in the world, genius should find its home. Here, imagination should be greeted with the problems in which it delights, the noblest task to the muse proposed, and the most cordial and honoring rewards. Here, the highest duty be urged, and enthusiasm for liberty and wisdom should breed enthusiasm and form heroes for the state. Ah, gentlemen, it's only a dream and perhaps will never be true. But I thought a college was a place not to train talents, not to train attorneys and those who say what they please, but to adorn genius, which only speaks truth, and after the way which truth uses, namely beauty. A college was to teach you geometry, or the lovely laws of space and figure, chemistry, botany, zoology, the streaming of thought into form, and the precipitation of atoms, which nature is. This then is the theory of education, the happy meeting of a young soul filled with desire with a living teacher who has already made the passage from the center forth, step by step, along the intellectual roads to the theory and practice of special science. Now, if there be genius in the scholar, that is, a delicate sensitivity to the laws of the world, and the power to express them again in some new form, he has made his own way. He will greet joyfully the wise teacher, but colleges and teachers are no wise essential to him. He will find teachers everywhere. I would have you rely on nature, ever wise, omnific, thousand-handed nature, equal to each emergency. If your college and your literature are not felt, it is because the truth is not in them. When you say the times, the persons are prosaic, where is the feudal or the Saracenic or Egyptian architecture? Where are the romantic manners? Where are the Romanish or Calvinistic religion, which made a kind of poetry in the air from Milton or Bryan or Belzoni? But to us it is barren. Bring the insight, and he will find as many beauties and heroes and astounding strokes of genius close by him as Shakespeare or Dante beheld. It was in a beggarly heath farm, it was in a mean country inn that Burns found his fancy so sprightly. You will find the times and places mean. My friend, stretch a few threads over a common Aeolian harp and put it in your window and listen to what it says of times and the heart of nature. I do not think you will believe that the miracle of nature is less, the chemical power worn out. Watch the breaking morning, the enchantments of the sunset. If I had young men to teach, I should say to them, keep the intellect sacred, revere it, give all to it. Its oracles countervail all. Attention is its acceptable prayer. Sit low and wait long, and know that, next to being its minister, like Aristotle, and perhaps better than that, is the profound reception and sympathy without ambition, which secularizes and trades it. Go sit with the hermit in you, who knows more than you do. You will find life enhanced, and doors open to grander entertainments, yet all comes easily that he does, as snow and vapor, heat, wind, and light. Power costs nothing to the powerful. I should say to them, do what you can do. He that draws on his own talent cannot be overshadowed or supplanted. Homage to truth discriminates good and evil. Power never departs from it. When the great painter was told by a dauber, I have painted 5 pictures while you have made one, he replied, Pingo in eternitatem. Study for eternity smiled on me, said Van Helmont. And it were a good rule to read some lines at least every day, that shall not be of the day's occasion or task, but study for eternity. This is a very good description of what education should be. We'll discuss this and continue in the next video.